We are Mike and Jeannie, and we restore old houses. In 2021, we moved to South Carolina and bought a 120-year-old Victorian house. Follow along as we put the polish back on this Victorian masterpiece.
Welcome back to 1834 Restoration House.
It is a beautiful day here in South Carolina. The sky is blue, the sun is shining. I feel the warmth of the sun on my neck, but I feel the chill of the wind on my face. So it's one of those days. But I'm not complaining because it's November and it's absolutely fabulous. So we're going to pick up where we left off last week. If you recall, we put a special mixture of primer, turpentine, and linseed oil on the wall to prime the wall where we're going to put the electrical panel. So today we're going to get out the primer, a straight primer this time, without thinning it down, and we're going to put it up on the wall, and you're going to see what that does. Here's our cheap disposable brush, and we clean this with a little bit of turpentine every time, and it looks great. It's ready for service again. So let's get this thing opened up. This is our can of primer. There we go. Now, oil-based paint, one thing you can count on is that it will always separate, even if it's only been 24 hours. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this stirred up really good. Make sure all the oil and the pigments are mixed. Then I'll wipe off the excess back into the can. And clean the stick off. Okay, the paint is now ready. I'm going to take it up and put some on the wall. Okay, let's take a look here. So this is the original paint, all 1,000 layers of it. It's really dirty, but it's really chunky. Pieces of paint have fallen off over the years, and then people keep painting over it and over it. We stripped that all off using the infrared stripper and got it down to a nice base coat, and then sanded it smooth, cleaned it up. So this is ready. We also put our special concoction on here that we keep talking about, and that gives a little bit of whiteness to it, but you can still see through it. It looks a little bit darker, kind of a gray color. I mean, that right there could be a good Cape Cod-ish type finish, but we're not in Cape Cod, so we're going to put some real primer on. And in case you're wondering, does it feel weird to be standing 1 foot away from the power lines? Yeah, it kind of does, but this stuff is safe. It's not going to hurt anybody. Okay, so I've got some primer on the brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and brush it on full strength. I'm not diluting it at all this time. The last coat was highly diluted, and that enabled the paint, and the oil especially, to get deep down into the wood fibers and nourish the wood. This is straight oil-based primer, and it forms a base coat for the color coat, which will be applied later. Since this is weathered wood, I'm not expecting one coat to get the job done, and we may have to come back again. The thing about these oil paints is it takes them a couple of days to really dry. But it's hard to beat oil-based paint for preservation of wood. Okay, now I've got it on here, I'm going to go back. A couple of long brush strokes to even it out. And then that can dry. over the next 24 or 48 hours. You'll notice that I'm not really brushing it on heavy. It's better to have several thin coats than one big heavy coat. Now, oil-based paint, because it takes so long to dry, will actually flow out. So if it's uneven, it'll flow out and become flat and smooth. And that's one of the great characteristics about this paint. Latex doesn't do that. Modern latex paint has dryers in it, which makes it dry fast. So whatever you get in terms of brush strokes is what you're going to get in your finished product. As I'm applying the paint, I'm pushing down pretty hard because I want that paint to get down in to the grain. And it's really sticky, so we want good adhesion. And I occasionally come back and do a couple long strokes like this just to even it out. This primer is really thick. The base coat that we put on here previously, a special concoction as we call it, was super watery to penetrate the wood fibers and make a good base. And now this is laying down on top of that, and this in turn will be a good base for the paint, the color paint, which is to follow. Okay, the primer is on and looking good. Now I want to ask you something. You saw how bad that was. I mean, you saw how ugly and how just ratty looking that wall was before we did this work. Would you have been tempted to go out and pay tens of thousands of dollars for all new siding on your house? Now that you've seen this and how easy it is to bring back wood siding and make it look beautiful again, would you still do it? Or would you do this instead?
We have these 3 trees in our front yard, and they're taking turns dropping the leaves. One has dropped most of them, the other one's still green, and then the third one is starting to drop more of them. But you can see they're each one a different color. They're so polite, taking their turns. Got to get these leaves away from the house and more into the yard, both sides, and then Mike can take the tractor and push all these leaves to the road.
When we left New England, I had no idea that the South has so many leaves in the fall. And those of you who are in New England know exactly what I'm talking about. I have never seen such a bounty of leaves in my life. So, me thinking that we're going to get a break, being in the southern climate, nope. That shows you how little we knew about the South. That's all right, we're still learning. Several people have asked that we talk about our tools that we use for paint stripping. So let me introduce them to you. This is called the speed heater system. They're made in Sweden, and they were specifically designed for restoration and preservation of historic properties because there's such a need to be able to get old paint off. So they came up with an infrared system that works really good. So this is called the Cobra. And it has a stand so you can lay it down, and that way you don't burn your floor if you have to set it down for a minute, but you can also use it as a handle, I suppose. But it has these infrared quartz tubes here. It puts out a tremendous amount of heat. And that allows you to warm up an area roughly that size. And what that does is it causes the paint to basically liquefy, and it breaks the bond between the paint and the wood that's underneath. So it'll smoke and it'll bubble. And so when it does that, you know it's time to go ahead and take it off. Now let me show you the other one. This one's much larger. This is called the Speed Heater, made by the same company. And they're designed to be used together as a system. It's kind of clattery. But what this does is it puts out, again, a tremendous amount of heat, but it does it over a larger area. Like outdoors, if you're trying to take paint off of your siding, you can heat up a tremendous amount of area and then take your tool and scrape it off. But the thing is, you have to get the paint to the point where it's smoking. Otherwise, you're going to struggle with it. And that's what happened in our first couple of videos. It just simply wasn't enough heat put into it. And one way to do that is take these wings here and lower them down, which allows the heater to be closer to the subject. Or you can just spend more time waiting for it to heat up. Either way, when it gets hot enough, it smokes and bubbles, and then you go ahead and strip it off. Now, as part of the system, they have these scraper blades. All of the handles are the same, but the blades are shaped differently for different types of work. So here is a wide radius. This would go on a piece of convex wood. Here's a really wide radius that goes on a concave piece of wood. And here's a rounded corner that can go in tight spots. And here's a sharp corner that can go in really tight spots. You also have a flat scraper for doing large flat work. You have this, and you have this. Sometimes you need to get into a tight corner, and that's where this really excels. Like when I was doing the siding outside, I needed to get up in those corners. This little piece here would get in there. Here's another one. We have a flat blade, and then we have different shapes for convex or concave of different sizes. All of these blades can be taken off and sharpened. Just put it on a wet stone, rub it around, take it off, put it back on. And if it gets really bad, you can always buy a new one easily enough. But the thing is, these are all imported. They all come from Sweden. And they were designed specifically for the task that we have here at hand, which is restoration of a historic property. So I just wanted to share that with you and tell you what that was. Again, the name is Speed Heater. Welcome back to the yellow bedroom, which is now a white, pink, and beige, and orange bedroom. It kind of has a lot of different colors now. That really looks abandoned, doesn't it? I mean, wow. It's like some of the properties we looked at when we were trying to find our project house. So yeah, it really changes things when you get some wallpaper up. But today what we're going to do is we're going to continue working where we left off a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to try to get more of the paint off the baseboards, off the door, the fireplace. We're also going to try to get the paint off the walls. Now here's the thing. If you're going to put plaster on a plaster wall, you cannot plaster over paint. One of the houses we looked at when we were looking for our project house, if you remember that big plantation house, that's exactly what they had done there. So back when they were renovating the place back, I think it was the 80s or something like that, the last time, there was paint on the walls, and what they did is they skim coated over the paint. And you could see in a lot of rooms where that skim coat had basically just delaminated and it was literally falling off in chunks. So the paint has to come off before we can fix the plaster. And how we're going to do that is with the speed heater and a wire brush. So we're going to heat up the paint, get it soft, and then we'll wire brush it right off the walls. And it's going to be messy, and we don't want to get that grit on our floors. So the first thing we're going to do is vacuum up and sweep up, get everything clean first. We'll lay down rosin paper, and then we'll get busy.
Well, Mike got the room cleaned out, so let's get the paper on. There we go. Nice. I'm tacking down the paper in hopes that it'll be easier to vacuum later, and most of the debris should not go under the paper. Oops, door. This row I'm gonna do in sections. This will be more of a square, and then down at the other end will be more of a square. But we are gonna have to do customized paperwork around the fireplace. This is so exciting. We're tackling another room. Yee! I love making progress. Okay, we've cut a piece out. You didn't grab it.
I was glad to grab it.
There you go. Now, I'll have to pull it up high enough to be able to reach that back section.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is we just kind of eyeball right here and just make a cut straight down.
Yeah.
And hopefully.
Do you want some tape to tack this back part down first?
Yeah, go ahead and just tack it. That way it doesn't move.
And I'm gonna tack one up here.
Okay.
Here you go. Makes it easier, less things moving about on us.
Right. Okay. I'll put
On
one
the
there.
corner.
Huh?
You need one on the corner so it doesn't keep catching on your leg.
Where's the end to go?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I hate it when they do that. There we go. I'll put that there, just tack it down.
Okay, so I'm thinking if we just kind of eyeball it and then come back maybe an inch to leave room for the tape. And now I'll cut straight down. Okay, so that allows it to hit the back. I actually have more than I needed, so I'm going to go ahead and trim some of that off.
So we're just doing rough cuts and then we'll tape it down. Well, how about that? A pink floor with blue racing stripes.
As long as it's temporary, I'm okay with it.
All right.
I don't want it long term.
No long term, okay. That could be a new design trend in Victorian houses. My dad always told me, wash the car from the top down. So that's exactly what we're going to do here with the trim. We'll start here at the crowns and the ceiling. We'll get that all off. And then we'll start on the walls. And then finally, we'll hit the baseboards down below the doors and the fireplace. So right now I'm trying to warm up the Cobra. It takes a few minutes. Kind of like warming up the old radio back in the days. Not that I would know anything about that.
There we go. There is some beautiful shellacked wood under there. Oh wow. There's some silicone in there too. Silicone is definitely not a Victorian building material. It takes a lot of care to get these corners cleaned out. It's important not to overheat. So I'm just putting some heat on it, waiting for a second, and then cleaning it out a little more. It just takes a little patience is all. There we go. Wow. Somebody put a bead of silicone up there. That's crazy.
you can hear that crackling sound, that's actually sand coming out of the wall and hitting the floor. I've been working on this, and I started on the contour, and I was actually surprised at how fast the paint came off on the contour, especially with the curved tool. Watch this. It just takes off a nice chunk right away. Oh, yeah, look at that, look at that. It just comes off super nice. And yes, I know I'm not getting it 100%, but we'll go back and take care of that.
Right now, I'm just playing.
Wow, yeah, look at that. My biggest concern when doing this is to not scorch the wood. Since this tool has a bunch of different contours, each little piece works better on other sections than others. That's enabling me to go back and really clean this out good. Paint's coming off super easy. We've had a few people say that, oh, it's going to take you forever to do this or do that. Well, restoration is not an overnight project. It's going to take a good deal of time, a lot of dedication. But when you're done, you have something special, something you can't get in a new house. So for us, that's okay. Besides, if we got the whole house restored in 2 weeks, what fun would that be? You guys would have nothing to watch. We hope you've enjoyed watching our episode on primer paint. The Victorians had exquisite taste in color, and that taste extended to the outsides of their houses too. The exteriors of Victorian houses were noted for their incredible colors. So next week, we're going to play with some color recipes in oil paint and see what we come up with.
Oh yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you for watching 1834 Restoration House. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.